Okay, so greetings everyone. Happy to see you, or I cannot say that all of you, but at least many of you are here today, and that is super sweet. So this given lecture is the prototyping day one, and let's say that the main reason for this is well, we're supposed to be starting the prototyping. And if you have not yet started the prototyping part, now would be the good time. And this lecture is basically for that, to give you practical thoughts and insights how to get forward with the idea and what you should be actually doing to get stuff done. Within the next hour, we will take a look into. There we go. I'm going to give you an example how to get started with your project. And also we're going to be setting the timeline for the upcoming weeks. And also I'm going to mention that encourage you into contacting me, and we can schedule the first one-on-one team meeting with your team. And there's a reason for that as well, but we will get back to that a little later. But let's go forward to the actual thing. So the main points in this lecture is that I'm going to give you the example project start for my project Seeker Shrine. And the timeline example for that, and the game core example, the reference example, and the goal example, and then the trial by fire, which is your homework. So someone asked on the chat that are we in hell yet? And I said that you will be, and that is the trial by fire. No, just joking here. No one's going to hell. But it will be a challenge for sure. Okay, so there would be at least two options for me to tell you about prototyping. And the first option is that I tell you the generic rule set for building game prototypes. And I'm pretty sure that if you go to ChatGPT and type in how to make a game prototype, you will get that. Or if you go to YouTube and you write how to make a game prototype, you will get that. So I thought that how can I actually bring some actual value for you rather than giving some generic description of the given topic. I thought that there's a second option. And that is that, for the first option is that you would just get a generic idea what is prototyping, and I think it would be rather hard for you to learn anything practical out from that. But the second option is that I tell you my own approach in starting prototyping. Yesterday I shipped my 5th game on Steam, and I've been shipping a game each month now for 5 months straight. So I'm starting to feel confident that I'm able to talk a little bit of prototyping and be able to ship the games in a short period of time. And it's scary, by the way, to feel confident of something, but I think this is one of the things that I'm starting to feel confident with. So I'm going to be telling you my own approach for the given topic. And with that idea, that example may not resonate with you 100% and with your current or future state of your project, but it will give you a more practical approach on the topic rather than giving the generic approach like what is explained in basically everywhere, how prototypes are made. But how do you actually do that damn prototype? Like, there's just a lot of hand waving everywhere when people are talking about that you do market research and you look at the data and you do stuff and like that. But in that the most practical sense, how do you actually do that? So I decided to tell my own approach. And that hopefully will give you some ideas how to go forward with your prototype. And I'm in the trenches with you actually, because on Monday, starting from Monday, I'm starting my own game. And I'm going to be shipping that given game by the end of February or at the start of March, depending on the Valve review times. And so within the next 3 weeks, I will be building a game from scratch and ship it on Steam. So I found out that this is the perfect opportunity for me to share with you guys the approach, how I do that. And this example of mine will be most likely something that doesn't resonate 100% with you and your project, but it will most definitely be something that you can get some idea out from that and learn something from that, rather than from that generic introduction to game prototyping. But I got quite thrilled of the idea that I'm actually here in the trenches with you, building a game at the same time as you are building your own prototype. So I'm gonna be writing on my Patreon for free for the next month, for this February, a devlog as often as possible. Not maybe daily, maybe bi-daily, a post on my Patreon where I share what I just did for my game today or yesterday or whatever is the time. And I want to share this basically with you guys. Obviously, there is a little more than 100 people on the Patreon, but this is inspired by your situation, because you are currently building that game as well within a rather short period of time. So I want to jump in the trenches with you and share this journey with you. So please consider. Obviously, this is something that I cannot demand you to do, and I don't want to demand anyone doing anything, but I would highly encourage you to jump into that Patreon of mine and take a follow. And if it starts to annoy you and you don't find any value from that, you can always just leave as a member and no hard feelings and such. But it's a good way to, within the next 3 weeks, to see how I approach this topic. And there's a disclaimer as well that don't expect this to be full-time influencer type of quality in these posts and descriptions, how I do the prototype and such, because obviously I write these blog posts around the development, so I don't have that much of a time to actually do those with high quality, but I will do my best, that I promise to you. So consider that, Chestercraft on Patreon, I will be putting basically for you guys, or inspired by your situation, sharing my current status with the project for the next coming 3 weeks. So my setup, I don't have that much of a time right now to think about the details and such of the game, because I'm behind the schedule already. My previous project, which was the Dune Rancher that was shipped yesterday, and it was the 4th of February already, so I've lost 4 days already to work with my one game a month. So that means that I will have only 3 weeks to work with the project. So I don't have time to sit back and think like what I should do or should not do and such. I just need to start and act and do stuff. So, and also because of the Valve or Steam review times, there is a high risk that I'm not able to hit the given timelines, because I think the slide was on the next. Actually, let's wait for that. So the setup also, I just wanted to mention this, that the engine I use is Concept 3, the graphics I create with Procreate, and the audio I do with manual recording in GarageBand, the music, and with real instruments and such. I just wanted to point out the price point of my tools for people who don't know like how much tools cost. So with my setup that I have, it costs $120 per year to make games, basically. As long as my computer doesn't shut down or my iPad gets dropped into the lake or something like that. But the price is that until something breaks. So the game needs to be something very small to develop that I'm gonna be making, and most likely your game will be as well. And my store page, because I'm shipping on Steam in 3 weeks, it needs to be sent to review by the end of Monday. So basically next Monday, by the end of it, I need to send it to review. The store page review on Steam is something around 5 days, but most recently it has been almost 10 days to review the Steam page. And that's only for the Steam page. And Steam has a policy that they don't allow you to release games that have been on the don't have been listed as upcoming on Steam for 2 weeks. So if you do the math, I'm already out of schedule, even though if I put the game on Monday to Valve or the Steam store page review. And also, I'm not trading weekends. That's my rule set. I keep and remain weekends as off. I don't work during the weekends. And so should you, or wherever you have your rest. I'm not saying that it's supposed to be the Saturday and Sunday, but even though you need to have your rest, and that's also a pointer for you guys, that even though you have a strict timelines, and even though you have to do a lot of stuff during the weeks and such, we all need the rest, and that's what we should remember all the time, even though when you start to feel the rush in your veins, that stuff needs to be complete and such. For me, because I ship a game each month, I always like to challenge myself. I want to get some pointer to every project what I try to do differently this time that I did previously. In the previous project, Dune Rancher, it was that I made a 3D game on Construct 3. Very bad idea. Never do that again. But I did it. I made a 3D game on Construct 3, which is a 2D engine. But I was able to do that, and I learned from it. Well, unfortunately, the thing that I learned from it is that I will be never making a 3D game with Construct 3 again. But still, I learned something, and it was fun, don't get me wrong, but still, it was rough. So for this given project that I'm going to be now giving you the example, how I started prototyping and such, is that I learned to draw cute, warm, and cozy graphics. Because, let's face it, I'm very bad at it. I end up drawing all the time something dark and twisted and scary shit. And that's my problem. I'm very bad in drawing cute, warm, and cozy stuff, and I want to get better in that. And that's the main reason for this, or the main challenge in this given project that I'm going to be showing you here. So, the first thing first, getting started, what is the core in my game? And just to make sure that people don't think this presentation as me presenting my game to you, it's mostly, or how you should see it, is that how you approach your game. So the same questions are for you, what you're supposed to be thinking when you're starting your project. So what is the core in my game? The game will be a creature collector in a clicker environment. I want to build a cozy game where you unlock new creatures, feed them, and get resources to upgrade your shrine. And all this within a borderless game scene. The borderless part is something I have no idea how it will be done. I've never done a borderless game before, and I have no clue how that technically works. So I have a plan B that it will just be a windowed game, just in case. If it concludes to be something so complicated to make that I don't wanna, or I can't make it within the time. The game will have a name called Seeker's Shrine. Seeker's Shrine. I keep almost saying Shire, not the Hobbit thing, it's the Shrine. Seeker's Shrine is the game's name. So why the game is fun? Yet again, another question for you. When you think about your prototype and your game that you're going to be starting to make, why is it fun? And how can I present the idea on the upcoming store page for possible players, and how will the store screenshots and later on the trailer look like? And these are the questions that you should already be asking you, rather than like, what kind of a mechanics do we have and such? Because in the end, those mechanics don't count to anything if you're not able to communicate that. So you need to also be understanding that whatever features or complicated mechanics or systems you design, you need to be able to communicate those as well. And the media, how we communicate those, is the storefront. If you're planning on releasing on Steam, the Steam tools are your way to communicate your idea. Those are the only tools you will ever get to communicate your game idea. Even though if you made the most awesome game and with the most complicated features and such, if you're not able to put it into a format that the storefront allows to show it for the players, they will never know about it. And what Steam page allows as a format to show the games is basically the trailer and the screenshots. And if the user actually gets interested from those, he or she may take a look into the description part of your game, where you are allowed to use GIFs and videos and images and such. So those are the tools that can only be used to communicate your idea. So keep that in mind. So I will need a warm-looking user interface to showcase the collectible creatures in my game. I will need a good-looking environment graphics where the creatures chill, as you can see in the image below. This is from the reference game, which I will be presenting in a moment. And I will need a couple of creature-specific mechanics that I can show how they function, because I want each of these creatures that the player collects have their own ability, which helps the player to obtain more resources passively. And that's for the core loop in a moment, which I will show as well. So the first goal, I will be building around 5 faked screenshots of the game within a day. And that's Monday. So by the end of Monday, my game needs to be on Steam review. and it's going to be a fun day. Within 6 hours, I will draw all the required graphics to make those fake screenshots and upload those on Steam and put the Steam page on review. That's the goal for before the Monday ends. And yet again, I aim for 6 hours of work per day, so that's the goal. Believe it or not, that's how I try to do it, but you will hear later on did it actually happen, but that's the plan. So while I work with these screenshots, I need to keep in mind that each asset needs to be game ready, because I cannot just use time again to draw those again in some other environment or such. So all of the assets that I will be drawing needs to be drawn on a separate layers to make sure that I can actually rip those out from the image and put those in the game engine later on. And the resolution of the faked screenshots should be as high as possible. So actually full HD, as an example, won't be enough when I draw the assets. So I need to be putting some 4K resolution for my iPad and start drawing for that, because I don't want to make the mistake of drawing something so small that it cannot be used in some larger situation, as an example, in the game engine. So just something for me to bear in mind. So the style, warm and cozy, and I need a reference for that. And that's the tiny pasture I mentioned, if I recall right, in the preview as well. So the tiny pasture is my reference game. And it won't be only the colors and style that I can basically look from that specific game, but it will also give me understanding of the mechanics that the users of Tiny Pasture like to do. And those are the users I'm aiming at the game as well, is to have a cute environment with different kind of characters that you can collect and similar type of mechanics in the game as in Tiny Pasture. So what next? Once I'm done with the fake screenshots, and the engine side work can begin. But what does it mean in practice, and what are the most crucial elements to begin with when I start my project file? I think it's going to be Tuesday, basically, when I start my project file. So first off is the core loop. I want the core loop of the game in place as fast as possible, which means by the end of next week. So by the end of next week, I need to have my first playable version of the game complete. That's the Friday 13th. I don't like the date, but that's what I have. I need to go with that. But yeah, so the core loop is the first thing. And for my game, this is the core loop, put in simple. I'm not sure, can you see my cursor, hopefully? It's basically core loop. You collect resources as the player. You get those resources by playing. And you use those resources to unlock new creatures. And once you unlock new creatures, you also get resources passively. And then you use those resources to unlock new creatures, and that's basically the loop. Simple as that. Nothing fancy, but also the genre doesn't require me to doing anything fancy because that's what the players do in these specific games. I've done my homework. The rest of the things in that specific genre is that you basically just have some entertainment for the user, which can be like things that the characters or the creatures poop occasionally, and you need to clean that poop. And that's just basically a diversion from the core loop. But basically the core loop remains as the same. So let's set up a goal and a milestone for the core loop. So on Friday 13, I'm going to have the following. And here comes the list of things that I need to be doing before the Friday 13th. The main scene in the game engine with the first environment setup. That's one thing on my list. I need to be doing that. Second thing, wow, the main building and the environment assets. Okay, well, seems like there was a double of that slides. Let's jump forward. So the user interface from which the player can purchase new creatures. That's one thing I need to be doing. Very practical thing. I need an interface from where the player can purchase new creatures. And new creatures will be obtained through eggs, which the player purchases. And these eggs will be set up to 3 different categories, like rare, super, and legendary as an example. And each category will have their own set of unlockable creatures, at least one creature for each category. And also each creature will have their own level system, which boosts their unique ability. Like, as an example, how often do they use their own ability to give more resources for the player. And each creature will have their own specific ability. And for Friday, I aim to have a first version of these abilities for the first 3 creatures. So I try to have 3 creatures in place by the end of Friday. Well, there's just one thing that I spot on the design is that because the eggs spawn randomly, it's possible that the player can receive duplicate ones, so I need to take that into account, that I will add a system that gives a level up for the duplicate creatures, as an example. I will add a system for spawning objects on the scene, which give a resource when collected. And this is the full list. So that's 12 points and 12 tasks by the end of next week's Friday that I need to be doing. Does it look frightening? Like a lot of things for 1 week? Maybe. Let's try to cluster that. So to cluster that whole set of 12 things, that basically means that on Monday I do all the related graphics for the prototype. On Tuesday, I do the odd implementation to engine and use or build the resource collecting functionality. On Wednesday, I do the creature unlock system, and on Thursday, I do the creature abilities, and on Friday, I polish the game and publish the test version. That's how I cluster it. And yet again, that's the plan. But stuff most likely will happen, but I have a plan how I will approach this. And that's basically the core loop. So on Friday, when it arrives, the player should be able to view the main scene. Player should be able to collect resources from the scene. Player can open up egg shop from the interface. Player can purchase rare, super, and legendary egg. And player can observe different category eggs hatching, the animation for that. And player can hatch random new creature from different category eggs, one from each category at the first version, and player can hatch duplicate creatures from the egg, and these duplicates will give a level up for the specific creature. But also player can observe creatures using their own unique abilities, which boost the player's resource income positively. But that's basically all the features that I try to get for the first prototype of the game, that I could see the core loop in action. And there's a big ton of things that I will learn from this prototype, that I will start understanding that is the core loop missing something? Is there some specific problem in the design? Or maybe the balancing of the game will be an issue? Or maybe the content will like too much of a work to make that amount of content that it will require, or problems like that. But I have no clue. So what I try to achieve with this version of the game, and same question yet again for you. When you're building your first version of the game, what do you try to achieve with that? Like, why are you doing it? Because it won't be a complete game by the end of that. So I'm going to organize a playtest during the weekend, starting on the Friday 13th, so that's going to be the Saturday and Sunday, is going to be a test session. This is done by sharing the game version to my channels, but before that I need to start promoting the upcoming playtest so people are aware of this playtest opportunity, so there's actually people playing it as well. So after the weekend I hopefully have enough data and feedback from people how they experienced the game. What kind of things the game is lacking? What was the fun part of the game, or was there even any fun part? I don't know. And what kind of problems appeared? Maybe I discovered those myself, or maybe the players who actually played that game tell that to me. But anyhow, I need to organize that playtest to see the results, that is there any future with that design that I have on my hands. My plan is not to think too much what I will add next, because that is totally unknown. The resolution for this given version may be that I have to rework the whole project, or I can continue on the selected track because it shows potential, or I figure out features or other mechanics that should be added. Those are basically the most obvious outcomes for the test on the next weekend. So how does this or could reflect to your current project? Aim to create something playable right away. And I think that's like very important thing when talking about prototyping, is that you make something playable as fast as possible. And the main reason for that is just that, because from that playable you will learn so much of that great idea that you have. Be that learning the things from the development side, that you start to understand that, wow, this is a lot of work to be done. Maybe you couldn't realize that before you started working with the project. Or maybe it's, like mentioned, some graphical issue that we are not able to do a borderless game or something like that. Or maybe it's a skill issue that you see that we are not able to do this kind of a code or this kind of a graphics or such that you learn during the development. But you will never know that on the design table. You just need to start working with that. Don't get too attached into details. Focus on the core loop to get it function and tested. Because this is also one thing that we find ourselves arguing, that what color hat should our character have, or will the collectible creature be a cat or a dog, or stuff like that. But ultimately that doesn't really count into anything, because we are testing the core loop. We want to understand the whole mechanic, like how it functions, and is it fun, and what kind of things makes it more fun, and stuff like that. But before we are able to answer any of those questions, we need that playable. And if you have a feeling that the game will require more mechanics and features, most likely you are overthinking it. Because in the end, if you take a look into the games that are on Steam, like a lot of those, obviously there are some that don't follow this rule set, but most of the games are very, very simple. And the thing that they do very good is that one thing. They are very good shooter game, or they're very good strategy game in building cards or something like building card decks or something like that. But it's not the amount of features that gets the user inspired within the first 10 minutes of gameplay when they start playing the game. It's not the amount of features why they are excited. So especially for a prototype, your plan is not get the user excited about the amount of features. You should get the user excited because the game core loop has so nice feeling and he or she wants more of that. And that's what you're testing. So the first 10 minutes or such of gameplay, does the player remain there thinking that I would like to continue but there's not enough content? Or is the user thinking that this is lovely, like where do I get more of this or something like that? Or do they just struggle within the first minute or such and think that I would like to do something else? Which is a message, obviously, for you that maybe there's no future for the given project. So it's not the amount of features, it's that the first 10 minutes of gameplay needs to feel really good. And that's all that counts. And that's also for all the marketing materials and everything else on Steam front is that it's the first impression that basically determines that will anyone buy your game or not. It's not about the complicated mechanics or the 100 hours of gameplay content or something. That's not the reason why people play your game or buy your game. The reason is because they find it appealing on the storefront, and also when they do, they enjoy the first 10 minutes, and most likely they are willing to see that how can I get more of this. So that's why prototypes are so important to be tested at the early beginning and see that does the core have a future, because that's basically everything that counts. So so start with small and experiment, but keep the big picture in mind while advancing. Because we always need a big picture also what we're planning on building. But at the same time, that big picture most likely will change along the development. When you start learning more about your project and more from the players, how they like to play the game and such. But you should obviously have some kind of a big picture. But what is a big picture? What does it mean? For example, for my Secret Shrine game, I have a big picture. And that is, as an example, that the player will understand rather fast at the beginning of gameplay that the game is a slow-paced resource-collecting game. I want to find ways to communicate that for the player, that no players would enter the game that is looking for a fast-paced action. So I need to keep that in mind from the start. How do you keep that message clearly felt for the player right from the store page? That this is not a game where you feel hectic or do a lot of different things and such. I want to have the feeling right from the start, like as an example, the Tiny Pasture. If you go to their Steam page and look at the trailer, it's already like your brain just melts when you look at the trailer, because you're thinking like, why there's not a lot of things happening? Why this is so boring? Like, where are the flashing lights and fast camera transitions and such? There isn't any, because they are messaging the calm gameplay like on every second of the trailer and the start of gameplay and such. So that's also what I try to do, and the big picture is that. The game will have a warm, slow and calm feeling that I try to keep as a big picture in my mind all the time when I work with the game. Warm, slow and calm. The player can find different ways to earn resources through idling, but by active gameplay as well. So I want to make it optional for the player that when they actively play, they can get resources and they can maybe progress forward faster, but I want to keep it as an option that they can just leave the game open and still get resources while they're off the computer or doing something else at their computer that will still get the resources. The player will find the unlockable characters within the first minute of gameplay. That's very crucial. I need to be showing for the player like very fast that from here you can purchase different kind of characters, and I should be able to showcase for the player that there are a lot of different characters you can unlock. So maybe as an example, that should be an interface where the player is like opened, or I force the player to open an interface where he or she can see that there's like a dozen of different characters I haven't unlocked yet. So I need to have that message felt again for the player that, wow, there's a lot of characters that I don't possess yet, so I want to own those as well. I want to make that feeling right from the start. The game scene should feel alive. The creatures walking around, making emojis, sleeping, pooping, and such. So I want to make the environment feel alive in the game. But that's the big picture plan, like mentioned. I want to have a day and night cycle. I can see it in my head that the day and night cycle could be so long that the player starts to feel that sometimes the game has to be kept open for a longer period of time to get through the night or such. And I want to have that feeling that it's actually the night and day counts in some way for the things that happens on the game world. Creatures have their own attributes, which affect how fast the player gets resources and use abilities. So this is also something I want to experiment and see, like how the attributes will work and what kind of values I can like change and manipulate for the characters and make it interesting for the player to buy different kind of characters and give them food so they would use the abilities more often or something like that. So I want to experiment with that as well. So the creatures eat different kind of foods, which are obtained through cooking. I may be doing some kind of a mini game. That's the big picture. Would be nice to do some cooking pot there, where you throw different kind of things and you swirl it around, and you get different kind of foods out from that. And depending on the creature, it eats different foods. So you need to be getting some specific foods for some specific creatures, as an example. That could be interesting. But all this is just a hypothesis. I have no clue will any of these become reality or not. But this is also the direction I start building the game from the scratch, and I aim for that direction right from the beginning. But I'm also prepared to ditch a big portion of these features. So I'm not getting too attached into these, because the resolution may be that the players are already enjoying a lot, that they just collect resources and unlock the characters, and there's no reason to do the day and night cycle as an example, because they are already enjoying the game. So maybe I add that as an update someday or not. I don't know. But still, those are the things that I keep in mind when I work with the prototype. So let's start wrapping up this guide, and I'll give you instructions how to proceed. So now keep your ears open, because this is for the coming weeks and months, and well, actually months also, what's going to be happening. So the trial by fire will begin. Our next prototyping day will be the 19th of February. That is the prototyping day 2. And that is the second lecture for this prototyping session that will end at the end of March. You will need to deliver your first playable by the end of 17th of February. And this is the first version of your game. The first prototype, the first playable where you can actually do something in the game. And that needs to be delivered by the 17th of February. That allows me to go through your prototype on the 18th of February And we will have the prototype day 2 on the 19th. We will have at least one on team session next week to make sure that everyone is proceeding. And we should schedule that. So if there's team leads here for each team, make sure to send me a message through Discord or such, and we can discuss about the schedule when we will have this meeting. Take your notes, team leads. Be sure to contact me through some way. Don't work on weekends, surprise deadline. Yeah, well, the good thing is that you will do a version of your game that you're able to do. Whatever is that version, but you need to have something playable on the 17th. By the end of 17th, sorry. That's another option. But yeah, for real, like, obviously this will cause pressure for you guys. That there needs to be a prototype complete by the 17th, by the end of 17th. But still, consider it this way. This is the best you can do with the given timeline by the 17th. Yet again, by the end of 17th, sorry. So at the 18th morning, I would love to have a playable build from each one of you. But what I'm trying to say here is that you're not supposed to be making something super fancy here, but what you are supposed to be making is the first playable. And however of time, or how much of a time ever you have to use for this given prototype, that's up to you. If you use 2 hours for the project, that's your project. What can you accomplish within 2 hours? If you use 20 hours, what can you accomplish within 20 hours? And just to return a couple of slides here. Where is it? So this is my plan for 1 week. What's your plan? And yet again, it needs to be realistic, considering your current time possibilities, how much you can work with the project and such. And I'm being realistic here with my timeline, which I try to do by the Friday 13th. So be realistic with the timeline, what you try to build. Where were we? So yeah, deliver the first playable by the end of 17th February. And on the 18th, I have the possibility to play those, make my notes, learn what kind of a game you're planning on making, and then on the 19th, we will actually go through all these notes from each of the games that were sent to me on the 17th. And you will learn during that 19th lecture, you will have a quick glimpse of each of those projects that have been done, and also hear the notes and thoughts, what could be improved and such. And I'm pretty sure that each of the teams will learn a lot from all of the teams' results so far, whatever that result is. So we will have that one on team session next week. So yet again, team leads, please send me a message. Let's try to get that on the calendar as fast as possible. And see where we are. And your game should have its core loop in place. The art and the UX is a bit secondary right now because we are testing this game internally. Let's put it this way, that we are all professional game developers here, so it's okay to have rough looking stuff by the end of 17th. But the more interesting thing is the core loop. because we professional game developers, we can see behind the crappy looking game and see how this could function if we have all that fancy animations and effects and graphics and such. So we can see through that. That's why you don't have to build a fancy looking game by the end of 17th. So the final prototype deadline for the polished prototype is the 13th of March. And on the 31st of March, which is the last day of March, which is Tuesday, will be the day that all of the polished prototypes will be playable by all of the GameLAB teams, and we can play those and share feedback to each other. And that's basically shared through the Discord. Let's see if we can set up a little more fancy event or such. But in minimal, we will share the playable links with each team on Discord by the end of March. So that's why the polished prototype deadline is the 13th of March, when it needs to be complete. And what does polished prototype mean? Is it needs to be a game that has the UX in place, as mentioned in the previous discussions or the lectures, is that it should be able to be played by an external user. Someone who don't have any understanding of your game should be able to play that version that you get complete by the 13th of March. So let's wrap this up one more time. Our next prototyping day will be the 19th of February. That is yet again at the 5 o'clock, same place, same time, but 19th of February. And you will deliver your first playable, which has the core loop in place, by the end of 17th of February. And we will have at least one on team session next week to make sure that you are proceeding. And I will help you if you're struggling, or even though if you're not struggling, I will try to give you as good advice as possible for the coming week and such, how to get something done by the end of 17th. Your game should have its core loop in place, and the art and UX is a bit secondary as mentioned, because we are testing this internally. Any questions if you have, like right now, you can obviously drop those on the chat. I can take a look into those. But I reserved at the end a moment that we can actually discuss of this and see that what you guys think of the timeline and the trial by fire deadlines and such. Any questions or thoughts? Now would be the time to drop those.